But to be the man, you gotta beat the man.
Shadows sleeping in the dead of night. I light the match, they feel my fight. Street I flicker like a war zone flare. They see me rise, but they won't dare. Some man cracks under my stride. Whispers chase me, they collide. Gun rings heavy like gold chains. Every scar on my screams my name. Be legendary, feel the fire in your chest. No second guessing, this is your test. Be legendary, break the cage.
Yes, sir, that is right. The rumors of our demise have been greatly exaggerated. We are back and on the air after a little bit of a hiatus. You know, Mike, this thing called life just gets in the way sometimes, and the best laid plans just sometimes go by the wayside, right? I know it's been a little over a week since we were with you guys last, but glad to be back for another episode of the Hoosier Legends Weekly Podcast. I am Justin Spears, joined as always by my co-host Mike Walden. Mike, what is going on?
Hey man, it's good. I think we got close to 50 degrees out. So getting a little bit of sunshine again here in this gray February of Indiana. So it's nice. I do have to talk about what happened last week. So Tri-West 8th grade end up winning conference in boys basketball, and then had a pretty good chance of making it to the championship game in the county. And in Hendricks County, we have the two really big schools with Avon and Brownsburg, both 6A in football. Both of them having over 3,000 kids, and then we have Plainfield, who is a big school too. What are they, about 1,800? You think 1,500?
Yeah, probably about that.
And then Danville, who's a 4A football school, and Cascade, who's a decent sized school, just a little bit smaller than Tri-West. I think the 8th grade team lost 5 games this year, maybe 6, but I know 5, and 3 of them came from within the county. So for those who don't know, like Brownsburg has 2 middle schools. Avon just went to 3 middle schools, but then Plainfield only has 1. Danville only has 1. Us and Cascade only have 1. So during the regular season, we lost to what I think was probably the best team that we played all year, and that was Plainfield. We lost to Avon West, which was their new middle school. They probably had the best player that we played all year, and they had a really good second player that played off of him. And I think they beat us the worst, but I think Plainfield was a better team. And then we barely lost to the team just south of us. I don't know if we went into overtime or not, but it was a really close game. Anyways, when the drawing came out for the county, all 3 of those teams were in the bottom of the bracket, and we were on the top bracket. So for Tri-West, that was like the best situation possible, right? And now, as 7th graders, that 8th grade boys basketball team won county last year. And I think it was the first time that Tri-West team, boys or girls, won county in probably like 10 years, maybe 15 years. So it's kind of like a big deal for us. And now we were able to really try to compete to go back to back, which I'm not sure if anyone's ever done at Tri-West, a 7th grade year and 8th grade year. So we were looking at it. We were like, well, we know we're going to get beat by Plainfield. We know that if Avon West wins and we play them, it's going to be a really hard fought game. And then if the team from the South somehow, some way could make it, that'd be our best chance to win. And then sure enough, Avon West and Plainfield played. Avon West is really good at the box and one, right? I don't know if Plainfield has seen that all year because they're such a well-balanced team that threw them off. Avon West won. The South team beat Cascade. I think that's right. Or they might have beat the other. Somehow they made it to the next round. And so it was the South team versus Avon West. And somehow or another, that South team beat Avon West, and that was the best possible thing for Tri West, was to get our rival in the championship game. So we thought, hey, this could actually happen, back-to-back county champs. But the problem is, with all the snow days and the freezing, those games got canceled and they got moved all around.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were done on Thursday, and our games got moved all the way to the next week, and we had to play on Monday and then play the championship game against them on Tuesday. On Monday, Tri-West beat Brownsburg. No, they beat Avon North.
Okay.
And man, it was the best Tri-West played all year. The defense was all over the place. They were running, and man, they could not miss from three. Like, it was unreal to watch these little 8th graders hit. Everybody hit. Everybody was playing. And then sure enough, Tuesday we played, and yeah, didn't play defense. Missed every single shot. Like, even like little 7-foot bunnies would not go win for us. And unfortunately, the worst team in Indiana end up winning county, and I'm sad.
Yeah.
I'm sad, and I'm a Purdue fan, so I'm super sad that there was a Heisman Trophy winner from the Bloomington school. The Bloomington school went undefeated. The Bloomington school won the championship. It has been a really bad couple months for sports fan named me.
Well, yeah, obviously, with all that, it's so time consuming. You want to be there to support your family. As I've mentioned multiple times, I had a senior wrestler who got knocked out at a very, very tough sectional. He ended up losing to a kid who placed, I think, 3rd overall that day in the 138 weight class. So we were at sectional wrestling, and then I've got one who's a swimmer. So, his schedule's kind of been going on. And then I've got Tri-West Sports Network that I call. We've called both boys and girls basketball games for recently, and we did a home swim meet. So yeah, just all that to say, like, we try to work this in, and we try to stay consistent with the content that we deliver, because like we said from the very beginning, our goal and mission with this is to promote the new conference, to bring together communities that may or may not know much about each other. And I've had a lot of people tell me, either reach out to me through email, or when they see me at events, they say, oh yeah, I recognize you from the show. I just want to tell you thank you for what you're doing. That we greatly appreciate that. It knows that we're reaching, helps us to know that we're reaching the audience, and just trying to promote these boys and girls, right? That's ultimately, at the end of the day, what it's really all about, is to help them, get their name out there and show them some love. But then, also it gives Mike and I a chance to be able to discuss something that we really enjoy and love, and that's high school sports. And so it gives us that opportunity to be able to discuss topical issues and things related to sports in general, and then, obviously the HLC. So, when we can make it work, it's awesome. But, sometimes there's just those things that come up that make us have to punt. So we are glad to be back with you guys tonight. So we're going to kind of get the show cranking up here. Kind of a modified show tonight. Again, with everything going on, snow days and contests and everything like that, the level of prep to be put in is it's very time consuming to put these shows together, to track down box scores and results from boys, girls basketball, wrestling, swimming. It just, so we were able to kind of pull together the highlights of what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, and hopefully we can kind of bring you guys up to speed a little bit on what is going on. So I'm going to go ahead and kick us off here with girls basketball. Sectional play got underway. We had the best intentions of doing a sectional preview show, and unfortunately weren't able to do that. So sectionals went off for the girls, and there's one HLC team that is left standing. So shout out to the Monrovia Bulldogs. We kind of threw a little bit of shade on them a little bit, or kind of jabbed with them a little bit about the whole HLC conference champion thing. And then out of nowhere, right, like the Undertaker rising up, Beech Grove comes up and is like, not so fast. And they tied for the conference championship there. So, when I saw them come out to Tri-West, I tried to catch Coach Selk before she left. And unfortunately, she had gotten out. I called that game on the Tri-West Sports Network. That was a hard-fought win for the Hornets. And when I saw that, I went, this is a really tough, well-knit team. And I really thought they would be able to make a big run. They had a tough sectional, though. But I just wanted to tell them, congratulations. And I know they've got a good program going on down there. But again, kudos to Monrovia. They now will advance to regional after winning their sectional. They defeated University, not only defeated them, curb stomped them, quite honestly, 82-33 in the sectional championship. So again, congratulations to the Bulldogs, who now sit at 20-5 on the season. Coach Gibbs down there is doing a phenomenal job with the girls, and I know the whole town of Monrovia is going to show out to support the girls down there. They will take on Park Heritage, who is 18-7 on Saturday. I had a chance to kind of look briefly at Park Heritage's schedule. And again, they're a team that's kind of away, more rural, so you can imagine that their schedule not quite as probably intense. But I will say I did notice they did take on Zionsville during the regular season. They did take on McCutcheon during the regular season. So they did have a couple of 3A, 4A games sprinkled in there. But for the most part, they were facing kind of Western rural schools that aren't traditionally big powerhouses for girls basketball. So again, you can't take anybody lightly once you get to this point in the season. And I know, again, Coach Gibbs is probably preaching to those girls, we've got to show up and play our A game to be able to win this regional. So again, that's something that's going to be really exciting for the town of Monrovia. And again, that game is at 4 p.m. And I'm not sure on Harold's site, it's not coming up with the location for that. If I had to take a guess, and someone reach out and correct me if I'm wrong, that might be at Greencastle. I know that the McAnally Arena out there is really nice and has hosted regionals for boys basketball before in the past. So if I had to guess, that's probably where that regional is being played at. But again, if someone from the Monrovia community is listening and wants to correct us on that, please let us know. But yeah, the girls are playing really, really solid basketball right now. They've won 6 in a row. The one loss that they had in there, it would have been close to 10 in a row, but Edgewood, who's a powerhouse 3A school, got them 52-57. So again, nothing to be ashamed of there on that. So be rooting you guys on, Monrovia. Congratulations. Good luck against Park Heritage and moving forward. Hopefully you guys can secure that win down there. So
Yeah. Hey, Coach.
Yeah.
What I have here, and I'm not, saying it's for sure, but I have it at Terre Haute North.
Okay, that would make sense too. Yeah, that'd be a good call.
And then that's going to be also where Brebeuf, the winner of Tri-West sectional, Tri-West, got beat first round by that school in the South, but it had Lebanon, Frankfurt, Brebeuf, and Guerin. Brebeuf end up winning that sectional, and they're going against Northview. They're going to be at Terre Haute North as well.
Okay, yeah.
At least that's what I'm seeing. And then it looks like if Monrovia wins, which I think they're ranked higher than Park Heritage, they'll be playing the winner of what I'm guessing is Heritage Christian in Union County and semi-state. And then following that would be North Knox, Evansville, Mater Dei, Austin, and Eastern Pekin. So
okay, yeah, I'm seeing that here now too. Good call.
Who's the highest ranked of those schools on that side? Do you see?
Yeah,
it looks like North Knox maybe number 4, Mater Dei at 5. So
yeah,
Heritage
I would
Christian's
think so. Yeah, I would
8th,
think one of those
and
two
then
teams.
Monrovia's 15th. So Monrovia's got a shot. They got a shot to make it to semi-state, and then with some luck and some hard work, they might be a state-bound team, Coach. You never know.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And again, just proud to have them representing the HLC and everything that they've been able to accomplish down there. Again, kudos to those girls putting in the work down there. So, with that, let's kind of get caught up a little bit here. Like I said, it's been a minute on the boys' side. So, Mike, I know you kind of had a chance to kind of catch us up a little bit on where we currently sit with boys teams. So what are we seeing right now with the HLC on boys basketball?
Indian Creek is 6th place right now. Speedway 5th. Monrovia 4th. 3rd is Beach Grove. Tri-West is 2nd. And Triton Central is sitting pretty at the number 1 slot here. Now, I will say that Triton's only 2-0 in the conference, just beating Indian Creek yesterday. They still have Monrovia, Beach Grove, and Speedway. That Beach Grove game, is a home game for Triton Central. They might be able to get that as a win, but Beach Grove has another chance of being spoiler here. If they get that win, then I think in Tri-West and Triton Central is going to split conference championship there. How you seen it, Coach?
Yeah, I had a chance to be on the call last night for Tri-West Monrovia, and Tri-West just came out and absolutely blitzed Monrovia. We beat them by 30, 77-47. I honestly thought it was going to be a little bit closer. In our pregame show, my prediction was 66-55 in favor of Tri-West. I thought we'd kind of pull away in the end. We've had a couple of games here recently where we have built up some big leads and then kind of let things slip away. I kind of worried about that a little bit, but we just came out and put boot to throat and did not let them up, throughout the course of the game. And so I was really kind of, and again, look, I mean, I'm looking at Monrovia's schedule right now that, they still play Triton. That's their next game. How will they bounce back from being beat the way that they were against the Tri-West Bruins? Could they possibly, go out and give Triton a battle and maybe sneak a victory out right there? I think that's probably, the best bet. If I had to guess, we talked about Beach Grove, and when you take a look at them, they went through that horrific stretch there with just some really bad luck and then some tough scheduling. They've bounced back to win their last 2. They've got 2 more games before they play Triton. They play Phelan Academy tonight, I should say, and then they've got Shelbyville on Saturday before taking on Triton. So we'll kind of see what the Hornets are able to do. If they can string together some wins, maybe that's the option, like you said, to sneak in that loss to Triton. Again, not that I'm actively rooting for that, but that would be, I think, the path to seeing a split. And again, Tri-West still, I believe, has 1 more game left on their conference schedule that they've got to wrap up too. And I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. They have Speedway. It's Speedway on Tuesday. So yeah, we'll see. Speedway is always a tough athletic team too, so you got to take care of business there. But I think 4-1 in the conference for the Bruins, with the way that the year has gone, wouldn't be all bad. Especially knowing that the 1 loss would have been to Triton early in the year. That was the 3rd game of the year. We'll kind of wait and see how things play out there with that. But yeah, Triton, like you said, man, they're playing really good ball. Coach James has really got those boys playing well. And I know when we were going through box scores and talking everything up, Eli Sego is just a stud, and that is a full total team effort out there with those guys, but they're playing good ball for sure.
I think one of the impressive things for Tri-West that I did not realize, because they're a 12-8 team, over 500 but barely, right? They played a really tough conference or a tough schedule.
Yeah.
But for 3A, they're 7-1. If you're just looking straight at another 3A competition, they've actually done really well. And that 1 loss was to Guerin in overtime. That game that you said you were kind of alluded to that we had it beat, and they came back and got us. And then Triton Central will be the only school that was a smaller school that beat us. So, you never know how these high school kids are going to compete day in and day out. But what we do know is that Triton Central is good, and
Mm-hmm.
they're very well coached. I'm guessing if I had to put my money on it, that they're going to go ahead and win out and be solo conference champions.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? That's why we play the game, because you
That's right.
never know what's going to happen.
That's
Because
right.
my goodness, I know we didn't talk about it, but it's the most disappointing Super Bowl ever. Uh, Seeing the Patriots, how bad they were.
Mm-hmm.
And you just know that Denver could have put up something. That Denver Seattle game would have been such a better game.
Yeah.
But I broke an ankle, and that's all it takes. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I made a comment to you, that day after of like I was just shocked by how unprepared and the lack of adjustments. And I know people always kind of maybe cringe a little bit. I remember Peyton made a really big comment about adjustments being overblown at halftime. Like he was like, I think he said something like, you go in, you eat a couple oranges, and you get a break, and then you go back out there and you execute, right? But I just really thought that Seattle threw everything off timing wise for the Patriots offense. I thought they would be able to adjust a little bit, max protect, get the ball out quicker, run some quicker routes, but everything just seemed to take forever to develop. And when he did check down to the backs, Seattle was there to, for the most part, wrap everything up. And so, yeah, I don't know, man, that one was pretty disappointing to see play out that way. And I mean, honestly, you can't even really feel all that great. It wasn't like Seattle played lights out on offense. Would they kick 4 field goals, 5 field goals?
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been a lot worse than what it was had they converted some of those into touchdowns. But
I
yeah,
would
yeah,
I would say I am happy to see that somebody other than the quarterback, get MVP.
yeah,
Um, it's good to see your running back do it, but it's one of those times where, like, man, if it wasn't for that field goal kicker, Seattle doesn't
right,
win.
yeah,
But at the same time, I think I saw some stat where all of his field goals that he kicked, if you look at the percentage over the season, it was like a 96 or 97% made. You know what
yeah,
I mean? So none of them were like super hard field goals. He
right.
just did his job. But sometimes it's all you need to do to win.
Hmm.
Um, it would
Or
have
the
been nice
punter,
if what's that?
that punter, man, he was
Oh yeah,
huge.
exactly. Yes, that's
I
what I was
mean,
about
he
to
pinned
say.
them. Whew.
You know, how great would it have been to see a punter, be a Super Bowl MVP? I think it'd been awesome.
Oh man, yeah, yeah, no doubt. But yeah, I mean, he stuck them down inside the 5 yard line at least on 2 or 3 occasions, and that was huge. To
Yeah, and
making, yeah,
I just wish our kids, high school kids, understood that where
hmm,
how important every single position is. And I know I think it was the left tackle, it could have been the right tackle for the Patriots. Was getting hammered on how bad of a day that he had.
right,
And I know sometimes in high school football specifically, the linemen, don't get a lot of love. But man,
hmm,
if they're not doing their job, like, you can't run the ball, you can't pass the ball. So it doesn't matter how good of a quarterback you have, no matter what star receiver you are. If
hmm,
your linemen aren't doing their job, you're not going to do anything. So
right,
it's one of this is football is such a team sport. You know what I mean?
hmm,
And I don't know if kids realize that. They just think, oh, we got the Louisville commit quarterback. We're going to win the state championship. No, that is just one position out of 22 that need to work together. And I say 22, realizing that I'm forgetting the punter and the extra point and everything else.
yeah,
Right?
yep, yep. No, absolutely. It's not a one man game. That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, speaking of a one man game, wrestling, right? 1-on-1, you're out there on the mat, you and your opponent, and you have to go out and perform. No one is coming to double team block for you or spring you wide open or hit you on the crossing route or anything like that. You've got to go out and earn it 1-on-1. And so we've made it all the way through regionals now for boys wrestling, and we have pretty good representation here, Mike, in the HLC going to semi-state. this coming weekend, and so this is going to be a lot of fun to see these guys go out and compete for a chance to be able to go to state. So wanted to make sure we shout out the boys from our HLC teams that are going to be participating and their results from regionals last week. So starting with the Indian Creek Braves, they have 4 wrestlers who are going to be advancing to semi-state this weekend. Patrick Dowdy at 144 was a regional champ. Oliver Howlett at 165 was a regional champ. So they had 2 champions in their regional. Elijah Geyer at 190 came in 3rd, and Aiden Butler at 106 came in 4th. So he will be advancing as well to semi-state. For Monrovia, David Bowman at 126 came in 3rd, and he defeated fellow HLC Tri-West Bruin Eli Ogle, who finished 4th at 126. He'll be going on down to Evansville. Jermaine Johnson from Tri-West at 120 came in 4th. He will be making the trip down as well. And then Speedway, Masid Ashula at 175 came in 3rd. So he will be going. And if I was, again, a little bit better prepared, I would probably know exactly. I know I see Monrovia and Tri-West go down to Evansville. I'm not exactly 100% sure where the actual cut line is. I know we're pretty close. So I'm not sure if Mazid goes to Fort Wayne or if he goes down to Evansville as well. So I apologize to Speedway there. I could check on that and see in the brackets on USA Bracketing. But regardless, that I do know that Evansville semi-state is loaded. You've got, and speaking of that real quickly, and I can't recall, I'll have to try to pull it here. Let me see if I can pull this real quick because I want to make sure that I get this right. You know how we talk about Carmel swimming, Mike?
Yes.
Evansville Mater Dei wrestling. Did you see that stat about winning sectionals in wrestling?
No, I did not see it.
Okay, let me see if I can pull this up real quick.
Hey, where was Speedway's regional at?
They went to, so yeah, he was at Mooresville, so he would go to, I think he would go to Evansville as well. So yeah, I think all of our HLC guys go down to Evansville. We talk about Carmel and Carmel swimming and the number of state championships. What is it? Something like 34, 38, somewhere in there maybe. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, a lot.
Evansville Mater Dei wrestling has won 50 straight wrestling sectionals in a row.
Wow.
50 straight. That's older than me, and I'm old. I mean, that's unbelievable. I don't care. I mean, think about all that. That's just unbelievable. 50 straight sectionals in a row in a classless sport still, right? So, I mean, you know, Evansville Mater Dei, I don't know, what are they, 3A in football? Are they 4A or are they 3A? I can't remember.
Yeah, they're right there. Yeah.
Yeah, you know. So I mean, I know there's some other Evansville schools that are probably in their sectional that are bigger than them, but that's just a dominant program. So yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Do you know how dominant it was this year?
No, I don't.
They scored 329.5 points.
Wow.
So
that's a lot.
Second place.
That's a lot.
Second place, 161.
Oh my goodness.
They almost doubled second place.
Wow.
And that was Evansville Rights.
Yeah.
I mean but it's just crazy, how they're one of 3 teams, and that's the other thing here too. One of 3 teams that had all 14 weight classes represented.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't happen very often when you actually see even a smaller school like Evansville Mater Dei to have all 14 represented is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Just pure domination there. So I was just saying that to say that Evansville semi-state is extremely difficult. It's loaded. It pulls schools from the Indy area, obviously, around where we are. Indian Creek's got a pretty good program, obviously sending 4 wrestlers down there. Brownsburg goes down there. Obviously, they're the number 1 team in the state right now. They've been pretty dominant themselves here as of late. They're sending probably almost their whole team down, with the exception of maybe one weight class. So yeah, I mean, it's a slugfest down there. So good luck to those guys. We'll be cheering you on, rooting you on. I wish I could make the trip down this weekend to Evansville, but I have some other pressing matters. I think my son's going to go down there and cheer his friends on. He's pretty good friends with both Jermaine and Eli from Tri-West. So as a teammate and friend, I know he's going to be heading down to check those guys out. So yeah, good work, guys. Congratulations and best of luck. So
Hey, Coach, you got me on this, and I'm not happy with you.
uh-oh.
All the way up to 165,
Mm-hmm.
Evansville Mater Dei won their weight class. Right? So 160, like every single one of them, right?
Wow.
And then you get to 175 and they get second place. And then you get to 190, they win that one. And then you get to 215 and they get second place. And then at 285, they got fourth place or third place.
Mm-hmm.
That's how dominant they were.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll tell you what, too, having been in the wrestling community now for the last couple of years, because my son got into wrestling his sophomore year, so the last 3 years, and we went down. I don't know, Mike, do you remember the year that we had the All-Star game here in Indy for NBA? They had to move wrestling state down to Evansville. So they had semi-state and then state down there. We went down both weeks for it. You talk about a wrestling community. I mean, obviously it was their backyard, right? Because it was in Evansville, but that Ford Center was packed with Mater Dei fans, and they show up and show out to support. I mean, why wouldn't you, right? I mean, if that program is that successful and you're a part of it, you've had to work your tail off to get that spot, right? So nothing easy, nothing given there for those guys. And so yeah, that ought to be a real fun weekend to see, and hopefully we can report back to you that we'll have some guys moving on to Gainbridge for state, and that's always a lot of fun. Wrestling state is always so unique and so fun. They do the Walk of Champions where the guys get to go out and get recognized, and then just the pure excitement of wrestling. For me, it's been there's a lot of dole and downtime to it, but when you got a really good match going on, there's nothing quite like watching something go to like sudden victory or just that, quick fall at the end that flips it. It looks like one guy's going to win, and then a takedown or an escape or a reversal or whatever. It's intense. It's so much fun to watch. And I'm glad that I've been able to be a part of that community. And I'll tell you one other thing too, real quick, before we change gears here. If you want to see a transformation in a young boy to a young man, put them in a wrestling program and they will grow tremendously. Now, you got to have the right coaches and encouragement environment, but I know my son was blessed to have some really good mentors in his life that helped him to grow. And I've just seen a night and day change. Some of it's been natural, maturity, but wrestling has really transformed him. And I know there's a lot of people that would say the same thing that have had their sons or now even daughters go through wrestling. So really just a great sport, growing like leaps and bounds. I even like now, Mike, Friday nights, Big Ten. If there's nothing much else going on, I'll pop on Big Ten Network and watch some Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. There's so many great programs out there, great talent. It's a lot of fun. So just a really fun sport. So, all right. You've got some news to share with us in the HLC pertaining to high school football. We had a retirement and a new hire, right, out at Triton Central. Share with us what's going on out there.
I think we mentioned it. Maybe we didn't. I thought we did at one time, and maybe it was just talking with my friends about it. But Hall of Fame coach Tim Abel stepped down, and they hired within and got Tim Keegley, former defensive coordinator for them, is now going to be their head football coach down at Triton Central. So that's really big news. Anytime a Hall of Fame coach retires, it's going to be a big vacuum there. So we'll see if Coach Keegley can step up, and see what he's learned from coaching under Abel, and see if he can keep Triton Central being super competitive. Also, not in the HLC, but speaking of Hall of Fame coaches, Bud Wright is coaching again. The 85-year-old just got a new head coaching job. So you never know. Coach Abel might come back here in a couple years and decide to coach. You never know. These guys, they get that bug, and they want to do it. But I think this is one of the craziest things about it, Coach. I don't know how many schools in the state of Indiana have an athletic director be a coach, right? And that's what we have at Triton Central. Their athletic director is the girls basketball coach. And now what we're seeing here is Coach Keegley is actually the assistant principal at Triton Central. So I know I've never seen an admin be a head coach any sport. So this is highly unusual. Have you seen that before?
Having coached boys basketball at Cascade for a while, occasionally I think when you got to kind of get more like rule where there's just like there's not the talent pool or people who have the ability to be able to do it. Occasionally I would run across an AD coach type situation. It was very, very rare to see that. Of course, Coach Graham out at Triton's had a lot of success, as an AD and as a girls basketball coach, obviously. So that kind of helps shut down any conversation about, are you able to do both jobs? Because it seems like he's doing that with a lot of efficiency and effectiveness. But yeah, no, you're right. That is a very, very rare thing. And, I think a lot of districts even kind of go above and beyond saying you cannot be, an admin. I'm the beneficiary of that as the boys golf coach at Tri-West. Our longtime boys golf coach, Tom Pemberton, classroom teacher for a long time, decided to get his admin license and applied for an assistant principal position job that we had open a couple years ago. And so, yeah, I got to reach out from our AD Scott Knapp one day saying, hey, I heard you coach boys golf and we've got an opening. Would you care for it? And I'll never forget, I was up in Canada at the time. I was up at Niagara Falls and I get this message. I'm like, oh, hey, might be able to coach golf again. But yeah, it's very, very rare just because of how much time and energy and effort it takes to do both jobs, right? I mean, you got to be there to support the entire school as an admin within the building or the district. And then obviously the time it takes to focus on your sport, especially a sport like basketball or football, which has become almost year round. So you got to have, I would imagine, a good support staff, right, of assistant coaches to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to, right? It's such a full-time job nowadays. And I think the expectations just keep piling on these coaches, and depending on where the county is and what the school is, and I got to assume, we've talked about in the past how much Triton Central is like Tri-West. They expect success. That is the expectation every single year. So now you're taking the role of AP, which is typically being in the classroom, coaching teachers to become their best and doing disciplinary work, right? Which is never fun, but always, talking with parents and talking with students who are struggling, making sure that, they're doing the right thing. And then you have to think about, okay, what kind of defense am I running up against here? And what kind of off, and then you have to have practice plans. And it's going to be a stressful situation for him. I do wonder if he's going to continue to be the assistant principal or if he'll step down on that role and just take the head coaching job. I don't know, obviously, which one he loves more, but to do both of them is going to stretch him pretty thin. So hopefully they have a dean of students down there that can help out. Hopefully they have some really good assistant coaches and coordinators that he can rely on, because he's going to be super stressed, especially this first year of coaching, trying to get everything down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, that kind of leads us into a conversation that I know you and I have had on numerous occasions in various different, for reasons and in various different forms of talking about this topic here. And I mean, obviously with that situation there at Triton Central and with many other situations that you look at in the news around the state of head football coaches that are stepping down, resigning for whatever reason, whether they are forced out or are leaving on their own accord, new hires come in. You and I have often talked about, the job of the AD, and I don't want to say taking accountability for, but having to have it right as part of your job, leading the athletic department, of replacing coaches that are ineffective. Now, I know that's a very broad way of saying that, because you might say, well, how are you, what's the rubric that you're using to define effectiveness, right? I mean, obviously we know that, in the daily grind, the nuts and bolts between the AD and the coach, there's a variety of different metrics that are being used to measure that, right? But really what it all boils down to, and what the community oftentimes sees, and what the coach feels and what the AD feels, is wins and losses, right? So having said that, we have kind of maybe commented that sometimes it's, what would you say, Mike, surprising that we don't see more turnover sometimes with certain programs where maybe the voice is stale, or there's a lot of, rumor mill, like having to manage things, or just like things aren't growing the way that you expect, records aren't good, you're not developing players, right? Like, I guess the question that all boils down to is, like, when is it appropriate for an AD to fire a coach and go in a different direction? And do we think that should happen more often, especially in some of the more high profile sports like, basketball and football?
Yeah, it's wild, how different every school system is and how they look at that. Um, okay, I'm just going to say something that's probably going to get me in trouble, but if you look at the Ben Davis basketball program,
Mm-hmm.
they had Coach Carlisle come in, win a state championship, and then that next year, or the year after, he gets in a lot of trouble for putting his hands on a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of backstory of what happened, and but there was a really nasty video that showed it. Um, Anywhere else in the state, I am saying that he's getting fired,
Oh, 100%. I agree.
right? But at Ben Davis, as a state championship basketball coach, he keeps his job and is
Mm-hmm.
coaching again, right? After a year suspension or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not privy to any of that information. I have no idea what happened. You know what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
like, just as a teacher, if you put your hands on a student, you're done for, right?
Right. Right.
So why he got to keep his job, I'm just going to assume, it was because he won a state championship in basketball. But
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea, right? Let's
Right.
just be clear. I have no idea.
Sure.
But that's crazy. Um, and then you have, like what Tri West is going through. Their third coach in 6 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Feels like we've talked about this in the past. We had a coach for 8 to 10 years, and he did really well. And then we had a coach come in here for a year, and then another coach for 2 years, and then Coach Dryan is on his second year. And that's not how you build programs, right? We've talked about this
Mm-hmm.
in the past. Uh, and then you have, well, I love the Steelers. Like, I'm not a Steelers fan, but the fact that I think Tomlin was their third coach ever.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you build a program. Now, don't get me wrong. He started off really strong, won the Super Bowl, but he made playoffs year after year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to a kid, a 16-year-old who's a huge Steelers fan, and was so happy that Tomlin was fired, and he wants to just start fresh and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't think you realize how great it was to have one coach for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
To show that kind of steadfast, one voice in that locker room who had all the experience. I think more teams need to have that and stick with their coaches, especially in college,
Mm-hmm.
where I feel like they're just firing coaches left and right, chasing that ring.
Right.
But I know that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about high school and when is it appropriate and when it's not. For the longest time, and we're old, mid 40s. Like, there wasn't very many coaches that were not teachers,
Right.
and every decade, every 4 or 5 years, it just seems like it's just getting lower and lower, and that the
Mhm.
majority of the coaches now are lay coaches. Um, and I think that's the problem, right? I
Mhm.
think there are obviously Coach Strine is a lay coach, and he's a phenomenal basketball coach, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not taking anything away from lay coaches, but I'm saying that it's a problem when you don't have coaches inside the school building,
Right.
because that's how you know those kids are doing what they're supposed to do. You have more buy-in from the student populace. It's just a better school when there's coaches in the building.
Mhm.
And so when that is going on, coach, what I'm saying is I think you give more leeway to
Mm.
coaches in the building,
Mhm.
right? You have teachers, um, you can talk to them, because as an outsider, you don't know the talent pool that they're dealing with. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
some of the best coaching jobs in basketball might have a 5-win season, but when
Mhm.
you look at the talent, they shouldn't have won any games, you know? And then when you have all the talent in the world and you lose 3 games, you're not you're not doing as good as a coaching job. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a little different in there. But lay coaches, on the other hand, I think you have to have a shorter leash. And it probably
Mhm.
all depends too, where you're at. If you're in a rural school area, like I'm just gonna throw out Attica, right?
Mhm.
With 166 kids, you probably have a longer leash. It's probably
Sure.
not a lot of people vying for some of those coaching jobs out there just because
Mhm.
you don't have a lot of people to pick from. In
Mhm.
Indianapolis or Fort Wayne or, Evansville, there's a lot more opportunities to get really high quality coaches. And
Mhm.
then if you have a lay coach who, you know, is throwing the f bombs around, who is always late to practice, leaving practice early, anything that's kind of like driving parents a little crazy, or the AD, I think you have a little shorter leash, and you find somebody that's going to actually run a program.
Yeah.
But to answer your last question about wins and losses, I don't know. It's that's a tough one. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I like your answer because even though it was like, you took in a lot of different aspects to it, which I hadn't really thought about much before. But I do think all that is absolutely, spot on. I think all of that does factor into a case by case basis of looking at the total scenario, right? Where are you located? What are your expectations? What's your talent pool? Lay coach versus a teacher, like that all factors in as well. I think for me, if you were kind of then to like boil it down and say, okay, well, you tell me what your thoughts are. I think what I would say is if you're willing to not put as much emphasis on the record side of things, right? Because maybe you're just in a tough, area of the state where it just is what it is. Not to say that you shouldn't obviously try to continue to get better and improve and everything, but there are just some situations that are really, really tough, right? Then maybe you could say, all right, then what we need to be focused on is developing young men, right? Kind of the Bob Knight mentality of when my guys graduate, from this school, they're going to go be productive members of society. And so if you can showcase that your alumni has, great success, and whether that's going off to college or getting employment right out of high school, or, being outstanding members of their community, whatever metric you want to use for that, if you're maybe even around 500 or under 500 or haven't had a winning record in 5 years, you can at least point to that and say, look, it is what it is on the wins and losses, but we're doing this thing, right? I could see some of that. But I think when there is what kind of overtakes that though, right, is the community. And I think when you start getting pressure in certain communities to say, yeah, that's all great and everything, but like I said, my boys go down to the Pacers athletic, center, and they play travel ball and they won, so why aren't they winning now, right? Like what's going on here? And that kind of thing. It does kind of surprise me when you look at, and maybe I just cherry pick certain examples or situations that you see certain, programs that is not really having much success. And the fact that, again, to your point, maybe it's the fact that it's a solid voice in the building, and that means more to the district, the AD, the community, than being able to win 10 more games in the season of basketball, or being able to win 3 more games a season in football, right? So yeah, I think it's a tough situation for ADs to be in. I don't envy them for it. But I do think that it kind of comes down to what we've heard with enrollment numbers in sports. We've talked about how they're down in a lot of sports. Some sports are increasing, some are decreasing. The talent pool for coaches, right? It's a big overhaul to have to hire a varsity basketball coach on either side, to hire a football coach, to hire a volleyball coach. It's hard enough to get your, kind of second tier sports, so to speak, like track and golf and tennis, right? That why would you want to throw more of a headache on by having to make a change there? And yeah, so I think it's an interesting one to debate and talk about. But ultimately, I think it kind of just boils down to the individual scenario.
Yeah. But at the same time, you look at a struggling team like Frankfurt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Frankfurt brought in a coach last year, Justin Kinsey,
mm-hmm.
and he was there for 1 year, and they're bringing in a totally new coach.
Right.
And it seems like their coach, Andrew Dudley, don't know the guy, but from what I've read, he's coached baseball for 24 or 25 years there.
Mm-hmm.
And has done really well as a baseball coach, and now he's coaching football.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what is happening? Like, I don't know if Kinsey left on his own term, if they brought in a new AD. I know the AD from past experience. I don't know if he's new this year, if he's been there for a couple of years, but it just seems like a school like Frankfurt needs desperately one coach, no matter how well they do the first couple years, to start building a program. And
Right.
if you're getting new coaches all the time, you're going to continue to be one of the lowest level football schools in the state.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we talk about it, and football and basketball are your breadwinners.
Sure.
That's where all the income is coming for sports. So if you don't have a successful football program, you better have a good basketball program. And if you don't have either one, you're going to be struggling to pay. You're going to be struggling to pay coaches. You're going to be struggling to get new uniforms, to keep the field upgraded. It's going to be a struggle to maintaining an athletic office. And I'm sure there's tons of schools out there that face that every year. We kind of talked about that with Center Grove and Carmel. I know they didn't leave the MIC. They got kicked out, and now they're coming back to play 26-27. But one of the things that they always complained about was that the rest of the MIC didn't bring a crowd to away games, right? If Carmel was hosting North Central wasn't bringing a lot of people, so they're losing a lot of money on the gate fee. Whereas in the HCC, where Avon and Brownsburg and who's at Zionsville, Fishers, all those schools play, they traveled all the time in really heavy numbers. So those schools were just getting more and more money, where the MIC was losing money. Right. And then also, as you were talking about, like the country club sports, there wasn't as many participants in the MIC as there was the HCC. And so that's the thing that you have to think about. If you want to have a good tennis program, you're going to have money, and that money is going to come from a good football program.
Yep.
And so ADs have to think about all of that when they're thinking about, what am I going to do to make sure that fans are to keep coming and keep supporting my program, right? Will I still get X amount of people, because this is the amount of money I need? That means I need to average this attendance. Will they still come if we are a 500 team?
Right.
If we start dropping below that, will they still, or will they not? And you don't want to think of it as a business, but that's what it is.
Sure.
You can preach all you want about student athletes. But at the end of the day, if that coach isn't winning games and you're losing the community and you're not getting a gate fee, you realize as an AD, that's going to affect all your other sports as well, because you're not going to have the money coming in.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
There's a fine line of when you say, yeah, he's been coaching here for 40 years, like Bud Wright,
Mhm.
I mean, he coached my dad who's in his 70s. And it's like, when does Sheridan say, hey, enough is enough? We're going to go ahead and move on from this 80-year-old coach. Well, that 80-year-old coach has, 60 years of players that still live in that same community that still come out and watch him coach, because their kids played. Now their grandkids are playing. Maybe their great-grandkids are playing.
Right.
And so the AD is fine, right? You're making a lot of money off Bud Wright selling tickets. Okay. Well, what are you doing at Frankfurt?
Mhm.
Where you're getting new coaches every 2 years, kind of like what we were talking about with basketball.
Yep.
You gotta find somebody that might not win as many games, but will stay there long enough to create a program
Right.
that people want to go. I don't know. Did I just say the opposite of what I was saying before? I'm not sure, but
No, I mean, I think you said it right. It's a fine line, right? I mean, obviously, you want to try to give a guy a chance to instill his stuff and build the program, but at the same time, then there comes a point where you have to draw a line in the sand, and whether that's again wins and losses as the main metric, or the program numbers are declining each year under your leadership, so we got to go in a different direction, or the gate numbers, or whatever. I would hate for it to come down to community pressure, but we know that that's a reality, right? That exists out there as well, and you have to balance that too. Not an easy question. And again, for our ADs out there, we appreciate the job that you do. We know it's sometimes thankless, and the amount of effort that goes into making sure that all sports run season after season, is remarkable. I can't imagine, us at Tri-West, Scott Knapp does a great job, and he keeps everything kind of running on time, and, everything kind of in order. But being at a school like a Brownsburg or a Warren Central or North Central or something like that, gosh, you got to have really, again, good support staff, much like you have to on your individual staffs for your sports. So not an easy one, and no easy answers there on that, but good conversation nonetheless. So, all right, Mike, with that, I think we're good to wrap it up. Anything else you want to add before we close out the show?
Nope. I appreciate it, buddy.
All right. Well, that will do it. So again, good luck to Monrovia girls this weekend coming up. Good luck to all of our wrestlers participating in semi-state, and for another episode of the Hoosier Legends podcast. We will see you again for another episode next week.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man.